Okay, so we are live and in session once again. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Frustrated Healer podcast. And today's topic is definitely going to be something more interesting about how realism does not always improve a game. So, yeah, let me just give a quick shout out to the early birds in the chat. We got Kat, Luxray, Paul, and Vicky Bro. Very nice. So, for this one, I actually had to do a little bit more research just because I wanted to be able to frame and phrase my ideas a lot more eloquently, I guess. Because there are multiple aspects of realism that we see in games, no? And how sometimes we're caught up with just how realistic a game looks, whether if that's the world, the characters, or whatnot. And sometimes people get too obsessive over the fact that a game looks photorealistic, looks like that, looks true to life. But there are times when you definitely feel that making a fun game takes a back seat to having to making it look realistic. So it's kind of funny how we went from pixels from 8-bit, actually even less than that, 2-bit. I don't even know how many bits the Atari was, right? But, we were from these tiny little pixels that were attempting to replicate realistic objects. And then we go from that to, more pixels, having more graphic fidelity. Still not necessarily quite realistic. And then, there were some people who thought that Pong was the peak of video games. And how far we've come from that time. They thought, virtual tennis! But it's just the sign of the times, really. And then we started to enter the polygonal era, with PS1, Nintendo 64, even. And then, of course, the GameCube, all that stuff. We were starting to see a lot more of the, I guess, primitive 3D. And I remember one of the discussions I fondly remember from when I was growing up. I was playing a lot of Tekken 3 on the PS1, no? And Papa War Chief would come into the room. He'd watch me playing Tekken, and he's like, look how realistic that is. Look at the graphics, Only for us to have Tekken 8 now, and it's like, what the like, Tekken 8 looks like a fantastic game. If some of you have the opportunity to play the beta, please let me know how it goes. I'm very excited for that game. But yeah, I was playing Tekken 3, and of course they're very blocky. It was still that primitive PS1 era 3D, but it was really good for the time. Then the PS2 came out, PS3. As we were progressing, we were able to get a lot more, technological developments that refined a lot of these things and really polished the visual fidelity of these things. That we would now get shooting games like Call of Duty 4. Call of Duty 4 looked quite realistic. And that was something that a lot of people gave it praise for, no? So then time goes by. We get better tech. It's like a cycle, no? We get better tech. We get games that look better. But at a certain point, gameplay starts to feel a little bit odd. we start to get this whole discussion about graphics over gameplay, or gameplay over graphics. I feel like this discussion kind of takes off from what we were talking about last week with indie games, in how indie games, while there are some graphically fantastic looking games in the indie industry, the thing is, there are a lot of simpler looking games. Much simpler, much more basic looking, for the lack of a better term. But the gameplay loop will keep you playing for hours on end. Vampire Survivors. Those are all like little, you know, back to pixel era, like Castlevania pixel monsters. But damn, is that a fun game. We have Undertale. Very, very much hearkening to the Earthbound days. And, you know, those super simple, tiny little pixel people walking around. But what an engaging story. What an engaging gameplay loop. Provided something unique, right? So, where am I trying to go with this? It's like, look, we now even have VR, right? Which probably provides one of the closest methods to realism, because you actually are the one moving inside the game that usually simulates reality. And yet, despite the potential of VR, like I was mentioning before, all we've still gotten are glorified tech demos. Like, oh, that's a cool little tech experiment. Oh, that's a nifty little demo. But you're not gonna be like, I'm gonna get a VR headset to play these things. Not quite. It still feels like a demonstration of the technology, but we haven't found the right thing to maximize it completely. And then even in I was about to say, outside of Half-Life Alyx, that's really the exception, not the rule, right? Because even with the VR tech demos, a lot of them can still be pretty janky. Because tech limitations usually lead to having more simplified environments, so it can load in real time, no? So it can immerse you in the game world, but it's not necessarily through realism, right? A lot of realistic simulations out there, but none of them really have created a truly fun game. Yeah. So, the thing is, we've gotten to a point where realism is not even a big deal anymore. As you guys were saying, AAA companies put a lot of money into graphics, but it feels like they're not really investing in what makes a good game, which is a fun gameplay loop, right? And the thing is, we've gotten desensitized to it. Like, okay, you have a realistic looking game. Congratulations. Big deal. You know what I mean? Now games have to offer us something more than just graphics. But there is still an obsession with photorealistic graphics, and it's like, you really do see it. Every time, like, we see those Unreal 5 demo reels, it's like, oh, look at how realistic this looks. Look at the fidelity. Look at all this stuff. It's blurring the lines between gaming and the reality and all that jazz. You know, those terms that they throw out there. But it's like, you know what I mean? It does look really cool, those Unreal demos, of course. But it's like, we're thinking, okay, so is every game from the AAA industry, anything made by Naughty Dog, anything made by you know, Activision, all these things, like, oh, okay, so are you guys just gonna have the Unreal look? Yeah. So it's interesting where we've now gotten to a point. Hello, Nemo. We've now gotten to a point where graphics have improved to a certain point, and then it's like we're now reaching like the upper limits. Because notice, a lot of the PS5 stuff, notice how when they were advertising it, they weren't saying that, PS4 was like, oh, it's the next generation of gaming. Look how much better this looks. And then with the PS5 is like, guys, we're using SSDs because the freaking loading times from the PS4 were too long. Like, that was the big selling point. We now have SSD technology. Meanwhile, PC users are over here like... And it really does feel like there's a lot of effort being put into it. But it's like, guys, are you forgetting you have to make a fun game? So, here's the thing, no? We have to now ask, what is the purpose of realism in games to begin with? Right? When you can have a really fun experience from, unrealistic games. You can have fun with so many games that have very fantastical, stylized art directions. Or in the Blind Forest, Hollow Knight. Whew. My goodness, if we're just talking about art. Hello, Mo. You wanna speak? Would you like to say something to the mic, my friend? Man of few words. I love this cat. Anyway, sorry. So... Yeah, so the thing is, a lot of people do claim, yes, it's sometimes immersion, sometimes it's a simulation, sometimes realism is an ironic form of escapism because it's now allowing you to do things that you normally can't. GTA! It is very realistic. It is a simulation. I mean, GTA 5 was trying to do a one-to-one real scale of LA. But you're doing crazy things that you normally wouldn't do in real life unless you're a psychopath. I hope you're not a psychopath. And the thing is, sometimes it's even social experiments, right? With the way people analyze it, when you're presented with these crazy situations, and it's like you're being presented a moral dilemma that you may find in real life, but now it's presented to you through a video game. And now it's like, how are you going to react to this? How will you attack it? Meanwhile, there's the Hoshiomis, the humans, and the secretaries. Oh no! That's true. I guess we are in a community of psychopaths. And I don't know. Despite whatever purpose they may have, I feel like, I don't know, they're still trying to posit realism as a generally positive thing. The devs and the publishers, of course. Because that's where they're putting a lot of their money into. So they're trying to say, we're not wasting time and effort and money through this. Like, we're actually doing something that has value. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's like they have their side and we have our side. And for them, it's like, oh, we're still investing. We're still gonna make the same realistic style, the same Unreal Engine, the same. And yet, on the flip side, chat, consider the other side. There were times when games got too real. I will say 5 words. 5 words that immediately will bring up controversy of realism in gaming. Okay? Call of Duty. No Russian. And you guys should already know what I'm talking about. It was that one mission in Call of Duty where you were trying to convince the the antagonists, you were on their side. So it was a depiction of terrorism and mass murder. You would go into an airport and shoot up innocent civilians. And boy, did the controversy from that. The controversy from that was, went back to the whole video games are violent, right? It went back to blaming video games for propagating violence and stuff. It's like, yeah, but it's like, due to the nature of the content, you were actually given the option to skip the mission under the warning of disturbing content. And it's like, at that point though, no amount of contextualization can really mitigate the damage done by the shock value of the scenario. When you see it happening that way, when it's like, oh, video games are simulating terrorism attacks, they're creating violence, like, that's its own discussion for another time. But at the same time, the depiction of terrorism and mass murder, of course, isn't going to sit well with people, no matter how you contextualize it. Realism. It's tough. It's tough. Where do you draw the line? Where do we draw the line? So that's what makes it a little bit tough, no? But the way I'm going to do this, I picked out, because a lot of the topics we've been talking about recently were a bit more general. I want to kind of focus and be more specific with this. And I'll be using 2 games to compare. Okay? I'm using 2 games from the same developer in order to really push the whole thing about realism. It's not Minecraft. Minecraft is the complete opposite of this argument, really, and how much fun you can have with completely unrealistic graphics. That one's an immersion of the fantasy world, truly. But this one is really more like looking through realistic games. 2 games from the same publisher, developer. I guess it's a developer. 2 games, but one did it much better than the other. GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2. GTA 5 and RDR2. Let's discuss this. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is going to be GTA 5. Because I feel like GTA 5 is really a good example of how you integrate realism in a game. Or not even GTA 5, but even the series as a whole. No? Because looking at it, everything is grounded in reality. You think about it. The premise, everything is grounded in reality. It's kind of like framed like a Hollywood movie. The cars work similarly to their realistic counterparts, and the cars are even based off of real car models. And then you have your standard family sedans, your faster cars, you got your sports cars, the rich people cars in Beverly Hills, stuff like that, motorbikes, etc. And of course, each one has relatively accurate physics, no? Now, it's not the absolute realistic physics, but they're the realistic game physics that we're familiar with that make it fun and possible to even have a game like this. Like, in recent games, car damage is taken into account with your performance, right? Before, in the older games, you can just have like flat tires and your car wouldn't handle anywhere as well. But now, there's like area-based physics damage. So if you get bumped at the front of your car and there's a big dent there, of course, your engine's gonna start, conking out a little bit, and you're gonna have a lot harder time driving that car. You have the police tactics. They have the spike traps. They have the roadblocks. They have helicopter patrols and stuff like that. And then even your physical state affects your driving controls. Like if you're drunk or your character is drunk or high, then your car is gonna. So sometimes if your character's drunk, you can just order a taxi and bring you home. You know what I mean? So it's like most of what you can do in that game is possible in reality, or at the very least made believable through what movie magic has kind of conditioned us to believe. No? There was that drunk driving fucking GTA 4. Exactly, that's what I mean. Your car going, whoa. It's like, let's put it this way, chat. Most of the car stunts that you had to do in GTA, you will end, the big ramps, right? The big ramp jumps, the insane stunts. You're at the top of a parking garage and you just ram your car through the big ramp and you're just flying over the city. And it's like, if we were truly being realistic, that landing's gonna kill you. Hey, Nico. Okay. So it's like, when you fly that high and you land, the problem is, in real life, when you land, that's just damage. That's just so much damage, so much impact. You're gonna paralyze your lower half. But because it's like, let's do movie physics, you can easily just ram your car, woo, and then no matter how hard or how far you fall down, if you still kind of land on your four wheels, you're safe. But it's like, that's where realism can take a back seat to just letting you have fun, right? So, you're robbing banks. You have coordinated operations where you have to do all of these actions in synchronization. Yeah, and then you have those, from the GTA Sky races, these crazy massive stunts. Meanwhile, there's this game on the other end of that spectrum. It's called Drive NG, or like BeamNG Drive, something like that. And it is a very realistic car physics simulator. And this one does not have the video game graphics. You can attempt to do the GTA stunts, and then when you land, BeamNG, when you land, your car just collapses into an aluminum can, practically. And I'm like, that's absolutely what's gonna happen to you. But that's where the physics, like I said, takes a back seat. Just enjoy yourself, right? I mean, GTA 5, apart from those crazy features, you have all of these fashion outlets, different fashion brands. You got the streetwear, you got the rich people clothes and all that stuff. You can change your look. You got you can change your hairstyle, all this stuff. You even have mod shops for cars. You can personalize your own vehicles and whatnot. You have your Hollywood movie style shootouts, cover shooters. And even the dialogue, the writing is believable. Exaggerated movie magic for sure, but hey, it's better than Forspoken. Oh my god. Meanwhile, that game is just such terrible dialogue, and you don't know what that is? Good. I'll show you a clip later. It's painful. Hey Victor, welcome. So yeah, the writing is believable, characters interact with the world, they have their own goals, personalities, and aspirations. And yeah, it's believable. It's realistic. The possibilities, the activities are, these are things you wouldn't do in real life. But the game opens up those possibilities. It's like, I'm a law-abiding citizen, IRL, of course. But if you give me GTA, well, we're gonna have some fun. And like I said, it brings forth the negative discussions about video game violence. But I personally think that's a convenient scapegoat for bad parenting and poor content management, but that's a topic for another day. I feel like that in itself is a very, very loaded topic, eh? Yeah, you also have Saints Row, which is like, you know what? Physics? What's that? I'll just let you have fun. Still kinda grounded loosely on reality. But it's like, it's not the main deal. It just lets you have fun. And, you know, we take it for granted now because it's been such a convenient feature. It's just been such an attachment to the GTA games. But the fact that we have a fully functioning radio with different stations, different music, like each station having its own identity is the amount of effort that you can appreciate. It is so... It's such a simple thing. It's such a small, mundane little detail. But having that radio helps a ton. And let's not forget, of course, the social political satire full display in their talk shows that are written exclusively for the radio. Like there's so much content that's written exclusively for the radio stations. Their ads, their little spiels, the news reporting, the radio shows, VCPR. And, you know? Who remembers VCPR with Maurice Chavez? The legend. Oh my gosh. And and it really makes you feel like you're in this real functioning world that has its own life. It's a living, breathing world, you know? And man, I remember my very first encounter with VCPR. It was really hilarious because it's like, you know, like in GTA, you steal a car, you steal a taxi, whatever. I grabbed the car and then it just, you know, had random radio stations on it, right? And then the VCPR was actually the one that was randomly picked, that was playing in the car. And it cut to that dialogue where, "What you thinking, asshole?" And I'm like, what am I listening to? Instant fan ever since. Oh man. It's realistic, but enough of the realism takes a backseat, just having fun. So this is a level of effort that you can admire. And this is one of those cases where the realism really adds to the immersion. It sets something of a simulation, but it offers escapism by allowing you to do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do. And then you also get invested in the stories of these characters and you feel like you're in a living, breathing world. Right? So, what's the flip side of this? Well, sometimes a game's obsession with reality takes away from having a fun game. And to this, I have to present the bad example of realism of Red Dead 2. I know. Game of the Year contender, won tons of awards, people still praise it, the critics love it. But hey, not the first time that I disagreed with critics and whatnot. It's my personal opinion. But I just wanted to have. I was expecting a Wild West GTA. I was expecting the pace of GTA, but in a Wild West. Oh, I know that meme, Lion. They were talking about that. And it was like, I wanted to have Wild West GTA, and instead I got Cowboy Simulator 2018. But look, the campaign was great. The writing was good. it had me at the edge of my seat, and I was following it. It was very cinematic. I really enjoyed the storyline. The environments are breathtaking, and the voice acting was great. Unfortunately, everything else surrounding the game is so mundane and a little bit boring for the sake of realism. Because let's put it this way, chat. I would say the pursuit of absolute realism is ultimately detrimental to a game because reality in itself has a lot of mundanity. Real life has a lot of dull, boring moments. There's a lot of dead air. So the pursuit of that is just counterproductive, counterintuitive. Because you're gonna create a really boring game. It defeats the purpose because we don't want pure realism. We're here primarily for the escapism. Because real life is boring. Precisely. So, what happens now? What happens now? Tries to... It ended up being really boring because it was too realistic. Let's put it this way. A lot of the quality of life features that we expect, that we find only in gaming, a lot of these things were removed, purposefully removed in RDR for the sake of realism. And I didn't quite appreciate that. In a game where open world has been made a big feature and navigation through said world is they've been attempting to make it more convenient because of how many locations there are. Skyrim fast travel is one of the easiest convenient ways to get from one place to another relatively quickly. But the problem is in Red Dead, it's like you can't even fast travel. The fast travel there was so limiting. Was so limiting in a world that was so massive, and movement was so agonizingly slow even on horseback. There was too much time I felt that I wasted just going from point A to point B on horseback. Immersive? No. Because the focus on realism got in the way. It was annoying, not compelling. I wanted it to just get to the point, get me to where I need to go, so we can have fun. Not really what you wanted. You were given so many chores and all these little tasks to keep up with. You had to eat food, maintain your camp, you had to feed your horse, brush it, your facial hair would grow on its own and you'd have to go and trim it yourself. Is it realistic? Yes, definitely realistic. Is it also an additional chore? Absolutely. Did it really add to the immersion? No. It was, in fact, if anything, it was taking away from immersion because I constantly had to open a menu to address the little tasks and chores that I needed to do before I could get to the good stuff of the game. So if anything, the immersion was ruined because of the focus on realism. I was constantly going back and forth, just maintaining all of this stuff and preventing me from it just getting to the point. Now, I was reading, I was looking up different opinions. And a lot of people were saying that, oh, but the appeal of RDR2 is in the slowness, You really get to appreciate the game when you're able to, slow down and really appreciate it. And I'm like, look, I understand that opinion and where that's coming from, and like maybe more along the games as art argument. But I just want to play a fun game. And I would like a game to respect my time. I have other games to play. So if we can get this over with, and skip all the hullabaloo, get to the juicy stuff. Can we just get to that? And man, here's another big inconvenience. This one almost made me quit the game. How your horse was central to you traveling around, but the horse also had a maximum distance that they could hear you. Because you can, in other games, you can just summon your horse and it's like, okay, the horse just appears, teleports right in front of you, ride the horse, and there off you go. But there was a leash distance in Red Dead. There was a maximum distance that your horse could hear you. So it's like when you do your horse whistle and you were a certain distance away from your horse, not gonna hear you. I'm like, why? Why? What's the point? It was just annoying. Was it realistic? Oh, absolutely. If Nemo was in the other was on the other side of the forest or something, and I yelled for him, he wouldn't be able to hear me. But I'm not trying to be in a realistic simulation. I'm trying to play a video game. Get me my damn horse, or just give me the fast travel option. I know they were trying to show you how dull, slow, and depressing maybe the life of a nomadic outlaw was. But the thing is, it did that by giving you a depressing experience too. Was the horse realistic? Yeah, sure. Was it fun? No. No. No way. And then, small things too. You had to pick up the items one by one. You were looting something. You had to pick it one by one. And every little thing, every little action you did had a small animation. Because, it's more immersive. I have to do this because I have to, I have to show you that, your character is skinning an animal. So you have to watch the same long, intricate animation every single time. And it's like, oh my gosh. Right? And then, of course, you had limited storage space. It's realistic, sure, but this isn't Resident Evil. I'm not trying to do a survival horror game here. Hello, George! We're just talking about Red Dead Redemption and how the realism present in that game actually took away from it being a fun game. Yeah. And, what else? What else did I write down here? Let me see, what else did I write here? Oh, God. So, Red Dead, right? So it's like, Wild West, let's do some shootouts. And it's like, well, the guns are very clunky because it was trying to replicate the time period. And of course, guns from that era were clunky. Realistic, sure. But now all your gunfights feel really oddly paced and felt really clunky. Here you are with a 6-shooter, right? You got your revolvers. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bam, 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 bam. And it's like the reload animation really showed you putting every single bullet in the freaking... And then you finally got the rifles, right? And it's like, okay, rifle, bang, bang, bang. And the thing is, even your enemies had the same kinds of guns on them. So all of you were kind of just like, bang, one shot, hide. One shot, hide. So it didn't even feel very adrenaline pumping. Was it realistic? Sure. But because of that, well, combat felt very clunky and oddly paced. And it's like this was supposed to be one of the few fun things in the game. Just the shootouts. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I know it's part of the whole Wild West thing, but it's like, eh. And then here, this one was another big annoyance for me. The whole wanted system. The whole wanted system was a massive killjoy with how harshly it punished you. Especially when you compare it to GTA. Considering it's from the same developer, they're both Rockstar games. In GTA, you get wanted, they'll hunt you down, or you escape the police and whatnot. Or they catch you, you get penalized, and then, alright, move on with your life. We're done. But in Red Dead, they attach a bounty on you. And it follows you even if you escape the law. And it's always now at the back of your mind because of how heavy of a penalty it gave you. And you actually had to go to the freaking mail office and pay off your bounty so that you can get on with your life. And some missions, here's the annoying part too. Some missions would have you do crimes, of course. And you would be slapped with a bounty afterwards, outside of your control. So, you're punished for playing the game? What? And money doesn't come easy in that game. So you have to go all through all the trouble to get the money to pay off your bounty, all that stuff, and then only for you to have another mission later down the line where you guys shoot up another city, another area, another town. There's another bounty on your head, which you then have to pay off eventually before you can get on with your life. It's like, realistic, sure. Because wanted criminals really are gonna have it tough. But I wanna have fun, man. I don't wanna be, it does like, be a good boy or else. The game just gets in the way of you having fun. And then there were so many unskippable cutscenes and a lot of long drawn out dialogue with people who you don't even usually care about. Some of the side quests, yeah, sure, they're fine. Getting to know the background stories of the people in your camp, in your crew, and all that stuff. But sometimes, imagine if you weren't even invested in the characters. Then that's just an additional, roadblock in your way. Sometimes you even had like these long horseback sequences where you just literally ride to an area and it takes forever. And the way they kind of try to cut down on that is just have the characters talk the whole way through. And it's like, why not just give me a cutscene? Right? GTA had no problem giving you cutscenes. And yes, there were some sequences in GTA where they would talk to you while in the car. But consider how much more convenient is it to drive a car versus riding a horse? Just in terms of navigation speed, right? It's no match. It's not even close. And it's like, as nice as the environments in the world could be, there's only so much of it that you can see before it starts to get boring. Some of it might even feel empty at times. So what happened was I just essentially forced myself to finish the campaign of that game because the story was compelling. I wanted to see how it would end up. But the gameplay loop was misery. And yeah, it just made me think, no? If the game really wanted to be immersive, funny enough, to me, one of the less realistic games out there that I always found insanely immersive was Skyrim. I loved the world of Skyrim. perhaps an expectation mismatch, but it doesn't take away from the amount of realistic tedium you have to get through before you can get to enjoying the game. I mean, more power to you if that's the kind of gameplay experience you want. Like, I'm not saying precisely that anyone who likes that game is a moron. No, absolutely not. You know, different people have different tastes. So if that's what you prefer, then yeah, sure, go ahead. But at certain points, even if it was an expectation mismatch because I wanted Wild West GTA and I got Cowboy Simulator 2018, it's like, it's baffling how some of these things were thought to be a good idea. You know? Like, realistic, yes. Fun, not quite. It was taking away from quite a lot of the fun aspects of the game. So, what does this mean, really, for the future of realism in gaming? I think devs should really sit down and rethink if the pursuit of realism, whether it's graphics, whether it's in the gameplay, really is such a good idea. Because exactly that, immersion doesn't need realism. Like, if realism is their avenue to create more immersion, we have been immersed in so many other ways, in so many other fantasy worlds. I was immersed like crazy in Skyrim. And I know Skyrim is a meme now because it's going to be released on every other platform that exists out there. But there was a time, like, when it first came out, I really enjoyed that world. I'm like, I guess it was my first time dealing with something like that. It was the first time that I dealt with something like that, and the world really just captivated me. It was that perfect medieval fantasy journey adventure that I've always wanted. Going around, starting off from killing, like attacking bandit camps or defending yourself against bandit camps, to then, getting much stronger, getting the, you're fighting dragons, you're getting stronger, you're getting all these spells, all these Daedric items, all this crazy stuff. And there was this sense of progression that you felt like you were growing with your character in this wild world, And meanwhile, the thing too with Red Dead is like the sense of progression felt a little bit off. Because the way the game plays at the start is exactly the way it plays at the end. You didn't really get more options, you didn't really get that many more weapons. Even the upgraded weapons you got were just slightly stronger versions of already pre-existing weapons. Whereas even in GTA, you got to play, in GTA, you got to play with some big guns. You got to play with some real fun toys in GTA. And you could feel a sense of progression through that. So yeah, the future of realism in gaming, I do agree with you, Lux, on what you said. You could argue that devs don't necessarily have the same vision as consumers in terms of realism and immersion. Very true. Very true. So it's like, I don't know. I don't really understand where the whole obsession with realism came from in the first place. Because it's like, there are so many ways to create more appeal to a game than just making it realistic. And yet the AAA industry seems hell-bent on pushing this pushing this agenda, right? Because there, too, as you were saying, kind of like building off of what Lux was saying, realism is easier to market than gameplay. That's true. That is true. It's easier to show someone, hey, look at this shiny new thing, versus, hey, look at all the intricate mechanics that we creatively thought up for this new game. And also on the business side, Realism is safer. It's the safer option. Like I said, what we were talking about with indie games last week, innovation is expensive. Innovation is expensive in the grand scheme of things. That's why we have to remember that gaming as an industry is a business first and foremost. And primary reason why they're there is to make money. Now, it would be ideal if they were making money by creating fun, unique games with interesting mechanics. But instead, what we get are formulaic, similar games year in, year out because they keep selling. So it's like, why change? You're right. Like, why fix what ain't broke? And then, meanwhile, you have the indies for like, well, we gotta stand out a different way. So we innovate. It's a gamble for sure. A lot of indie games have failed. But the ones that have succeeded, my goodness, became success stories that, became massive success stories that also unfortunately inspired a whole slew of other indie games that didn't quite make the cut. No? RPGs wouldn't get better if you had to consider stuff like hunger while you travel the world. Yep. And then, remember when Mega Man Battle Network was taking off and there were IRL PETs that allow you to control your Navi that way? Exactly. That's kind of like the realism you want. It's a fine balance. Like, you have to know the purpose of why you're using realism. If realism is your vehicle to present the craziness of your game, like in GTA, it works. If realism is the primary goal and everything else, becomes second to that, then you get Red Dead Redemption. So it has to be more than just a marketing ploy at this point. It has to have a purpose. It needs to have an objective. Like, why? Why does it need to be realistic? Is there something about a realistic presentation that we can only... Is there something about the game that we're planning that only works if we do a realistic presentation? If yes, then yeah. Go for it. If you have a purpose to it, fire away. But if you're just using it as a marketing ploy, then you get the graphics over gameplay. Smell-o-vision. Yep. My take on the Kerbal Space Program. Is that that's a simulation. That's really a simulation. And that has its own purpose. Like simulations have their own specific purpose. So they're kind of their own thing. Yeah. Does realism serve the narrative or gameplay? Both. Both. Like I was just saying earlier, GTA. The realism there serves both the narrative because everything is grounded within that reality, but it also serves the gameplay because of how you use your cars, how you use your, how you use your guns, how you interact with the world. That's how it works. Realism should serve both. It's realistic enough that it looks like it helps the player feel relatable to the setting and helps them get more immersed. Yeah. Because if realism only serves one or the other, then you get an imbalance. And then you get something that's a little bit off. But like I said, it's fantasy games that are completely not grounded in reality. They have their place too. How realistic does television have to be? You got smell-o-vision? My god. I remember when that was a whole thing. Imagine if we had smell-o-vision in a Resident Evil game. Ooh, that would be nasty. Oh man, it was the 1950s. Yeah, like imagine all the zombies. Oh. So it just doesn't work for some cases. It just doesn't. So we have to find the case. If devs are really using realism in a game, then it has to be a way. It has to support the game, both narratively and gameplay wise. But it cannot be the primary thing that they're just marketing for the sake of like, oh guys, look, realism. And then it's like, okay, it's realistic. Congrats. Where's the game? Alright? So, I think with that, we can wrap up that little discussion. We've been going for about an hour, which is a good time. So, next week, I'm actually still... 2 weeks from now, I'm still debating on what exactly the topic is going to be for that podcast. A few things I was thinking about was like, are gamers actually entitled? Trying to answer some of the tough questions. Like, are gamers actually entitled? Or is video game violence really to blame? And all that stuff. So, I'm still thinking about it. But, or maybe I could even look at the question of the business aspect of the gaming industry versus the gaming aspect of the industry. So maybe I could have you guys vote on that too. Maybe we'll do that vote on Discord. All right, which is also in the description down below if you guys would like to join. So with that, I would say our session is adjourned. Everybody, please take care of yourselves. Have a lovely rest of your day, afternoon, and evening. And I will see you tomorrow on the reaction channel for the Hololive Weekly Roundup. All right? And that, this is Senator War Chief signing out. Take care, you guys. Otsu Sen.